been doing commercial real estate in Hamilton for 28 years, so for a while, so I've seen quite a few changes out here. Tell me, how many people in here were actually in the workforce before 1995, or even 93? Okay, you'll remember all these areas here being part of the old Air Force base with the Spitfire parked out the front, and over where the other competitor to these Mitre 10 people used to be a cornfield. So you notice that I didn't mention the name, unlike other people. And of course, out the back out here on the other side of the railway line was a dairy farm. And since about 1995 through to now, you've got all of this development that's gone on. So what happened was that the City Council actually started with Maori Street, and they decided that they would open up that area as an industrial area. I mean, Frankton was getting pretty full, and the back streets of the back properties of Sunshine Ave and Northway Street were getting very full, and so they opened up Maori Street with the intention of trying to bring some big businesses down here. James Hardy came down here, Ulrich Aluminium, a number of others, and that got completed relatively quickly, and of course there were sections available at that stage, and you were buying land essentially at that stage at about $50 to $60 a square metre, so relatively cheaply. Then once that actually got filled up, the next lot of development was actually across the road over here called the Boulevard. A gentleman from Auckland, and then a little bit later we sold that development to a name that you might know, Malcolm Erdy from Huntley. You might know Malcolm through some of the race car activities around the place. So Malcolm actually developed that whole, what we call Te Rapa Park. So that's still in the late 90s. And of course that's all now full, got filled up pretty quick. And of course at that time, Tainui started doing, the base here, and of course Mitre 10 and the warehouse and so on. So the warehouse got right behind the Tainui deal, and brought along a whole lot of other retailers with it. So come to about 2001, the City Council, through the lobbying of a few real estate agents around the place and some industrialists, said, hey look, whereabouts are we going to put some of these big buildings, these big industrial crowds, because again, the Boulevard's getting full, Maori Street's already full, and Kaimere Street's already full. We can't build anything out in Frankton because it's either peat or it's right on the city boundary, and of course Waipa and Hamilton didn't want to actually extend that boundary. And of course Tainui had come along with their inland port as well. It's a little bit later, but there's still work going on there despite the fact the zoning's over there. So we ended up with what we call the Rotorcary Structure Plan. Now that took a little while to get through council because part of it was the proposed expressway, which we all now use. Interestingly, when I first got involved with that Rotorcary plan, that expressway was going to be hard up against the railway line, come down Crawford Street, run up the railway line, and then carry on the route that it's got now. But the industrialists and the agents all lobbied the council, and we ended up pushing it out. We ended up with about 170 odd hectares of new industrial land. So that was supposed to be a 20-year supply. So in 2007, that land was rezoned, and porters along with Julie Hardacre opened up Arthur Porter Drive. And people could start driving up and down there, and businesses started going in there. The first business that went there was Norman's Transport, and of course Porter Village started their development as well. You had the two other deals that happened in a very short space of time were New Zealand Post building, which now is actually a little bit small, they tell me, and of course Mainfreight, they've actually doubled their size in Hamilton since building that building, which you wouldn't think, but they bought between them probably the thick end of 15 hectares or so, and those buildings are all up, and now you've got all the car guys out here, and a number of other key players. Bidfood straight across the back over here, and there's been businesses that have actually come down from Auckland as well. So the 20-year supply, if you think about that, so 2007, 2027, there should be sort of enough sections now still for people to actually go and buy and build on. What's happened is that the price of the land has gone from that $50 to $60 a metre back in the late 90s, and is now touching $400 a metre for industrial land out here. There's been one corner deal at the back here at $500 a metre, so tenfold from 1996. So people are paying some of the bigger prices, and it's having an effect on rental, but it hasn't slowed growth. Businesses and COVID's probably been a little bit to do with it too, to get themselves out of Auckland, but businesses have been coming down to Hamilton because it's halfway between the two ports. So I'm doing a deal at the moment for a distributor in the car industry. They do parts, and they are halfway between, they've picked Te Rapa because it's essentially halfway between Auckland and Tauranga. So they've got stuff coming in and stuff going out as well. So it being halfway makes a whole lot of sense. The ports of Auckland have now got their inland port out there with open country cheese. They're about to complete the road around to the new bridge. It's under construction right now. So that back end of Northgate, as it's known, people just don't believe it, but it's half sold. There's about 33 hectares of industrial land out there. It's half gone. And the price has risen 3 times in the last 9 months. So, and that's just straight out through supply and demand. So the growth has actually been far, far quicker than what the council have actually, suggested in their road to carry structure plan. So the question then becomes, where to next? Now, as part of that road to carry structure plan, they made some other changes to the land which is known as the Fonterra Farm. And of course, with that extension of the expressway, the city boundary got pushed out to the expressway. So it therefore took in all the land around the dairy factory and the farmland this side of the expressway. It's still on the other side of the expressway, the boundary is still Lexley Road and where the old Ruffle Road and Burbush Road goes. So it means that the land north of Mainfreight will eventually become industrial. Now the council have actually got a problem though, and I don't want to sort of stand here and criticise anybody from the council here. I hope they're listening. But if there is, if they're not, if you know somebody from the council, tell them to come and talk to me about it, because there is a problem coming up. That land has been divided into 2 parts. The Fonterra guys are quite clear that they would like to actually keep the Fonterra farm because it paints a great picture for their visitors from offshore. This is where the grass is grown and the cow chews it up, and out the other end comes some milk, and we put it in a bottle or put it in a bag for some powder, and you guys buy it, and that's the process. And of course, when they stand on the top of the factory there, you can tell the whole story from there to there to there, into here and out. So it's a great story for them. So they don't want to develop that land as industrial. That will remain as the road to carry farm for a long time. But it's regarded in the district scheme as Block A. Block B is all the land on the western side of the railway line. So when Block A gets done, then we can do Block B. See the problem? So we've actually got, we're running out of industrial land right now. So you might look out, when you look out there, when you drive down Arthur Porter Drive, you look around and you say, look Theo, you're not right. There's a lot of grass out there. There's a lot of grass. And you are right, there's a lot of grass. But if you think about it, most of that grass is actually already committed. So if you think about the Porter site up here, there's about 4 new builds that are about to come out of the ground. Okay, so next door to Multi-Spares, there's 2 buildings going in there. Just on the other side of Hydrolink, there's 2 more buildings going in there. Flyaways have just finished their new one out there. There's a big 7,500 metre logistics building being under construction right now on Earth Mover. And there's a number of others that are in the pipeline to go along that stretch. There are now only 6 sections, total of about 2 hectares or 2.5 hectares of land left on the Porter end of Te Rapa Gateway. If you look at the land that's out behind us here, you're going to say, Theo, there's actually a lot more grass out here, and you're 100% correct. But the land out here is actually owned by a group in Dunedin called Chalmers Properties, which are a local authority. They're owned by the Ports of Otago. Chalmers Properties is a very wealthy investment group, if you like. They take a lot of funds out of their surpluses from the Ports of Otago. And there's also a whole lot of other money that comes from various investors, and they buy up land or investment properties around the place. So they have land out there, and they are now about to do some design builds out there. They're about to start building for IAG, the repair hub. So if you go to Takanini and you have a small ding in your car, you can go to the repair hub in Takanini, and within a number of half a day, it's fixed. They just do minor repairs on cars. So that's going to go down behind Foster's. And then also down there was a new distribution centre for Steel and Tube. Both those buildings are about to get constructed in the next sort of, starting in about 6 months. I think their buildings are just going through permit stage at the moment. Or there's a bit of design still going on, but the leases are done, and there's 2 others which are in the pipeline. One is a business here in Hamilton that's looking to treble its size, believe it or not, and one is a business from Auckland that's coming down here to bring their activities down here. Then you think about the airport. So, okay, we can't buy anything out here as an owner-occupier. We might want to go to the airport. And the airport's, even though the distance to the airport's still the same, it feels a whole lot closer than it used to be. When I live in Cambridge, and I sort of feel driving up and down the expressway to Cambridge is so much easier than it used to be. You used to just have to drive around Tamaheri there and wait for everybody in the queue, and you do at the moment because of the roadworks, but once you actually get on that expressway, and I've worked out that it's 7 minutes from the Able supermarket to my home. And I won't tell you how fast I was going, but anyway, so the airport and at Hautapu, the airport authority, along with the local authorities, have actually opened up a whole lot of land. You've now got, one of the first occupiers out there was Torpedo 7, which a lot of you will, have bought cycling gear from. You don't have cycling gear at Mitre 10, do you? No? No, well that's okay, I mentioned Torpedo 7. But you've got the other competitor. You've got the trade depot going out there and a 3-hectare roof. That's huge, 30,000 metres of building stuff. Sorry guys. On the 6-hectare site, so that's on the corner of Rains Road. Techplas, who are down in De Leeuw Place, are trebling their size in a new plant for plastic extrusions out there. You've seen already out in Cambridge, Mitch Claw with the architectural profiles, or APL, doing this double glazing building out there. That building, you ready for this guys and gals? 510 metres long around about, 130 metres across. That is a big building. So, and Foster's are the construction guys for that. They've been at it for nearly 2 years. So, but I understand there's some work going on in there already. So 70 new jobs for Cambridge, great. But and that's one of the great things to do with the development that's been happening. At the airport, you've got Land Power's done a new build, or doing a new build. Tyre Line's about to do a new build. There's a number of others that are out there, doing Excite. They've got a new site out there. Storage King have done a double their expansion out there. So there's a lot of great things that are actually happening around the city. But the city's growth has been astronomical. I don't know how the population's grown here, but if I think about Cambridge, when I first moved to Cambridge in the early 90s, it was about 5,500 or 6,000 people. It's over 20,000 people now. And the 2 high schools have got nearly 6,000 kids between them. So there's been a lot of growth, and I'd say that Hamilton's experiencing the same expansion.